I asked the hospital why they won't treat my daughter's symptoms, and the doctor said some answers are more dangerous than the illness. My daughter Lily has been vomiting blood for 3 days, and the emergency room doctor at Riverside Memorial Hospital refuses to admit her or run any tests beyond basic blood work. She sits on the examination table with crimson staining her lips, trembling and pale, while Dr. Gregory Marsh stands with his arms crossed, telling me there's nothing wrong with her that warrants further investigation. I can see my daughter is dying in front of us, losing weight she doesn't have to lose, unable to keep down water, and this man is suggesting I take her home and monitor her symptoms. When I demand to speak to his supervisor, his jaw tightens and he tells me to step into the hallway. In the corridor outside the examination room, Dr. Marsh closes the door and moves close enough that I can smell coffee on his breath. His voice drops to barely above a whisper. Mrs. Foster, I'm going to tell you something that could cost me my career and possibly my life. Stop bringing your daughter here. Stop asking questions. Some answers are more dangerous than the illness, and if you keep pushing, you're going to put both of you at risk. Then he walks away, leaving me standing in that fluorescent-lit hallway with my heart hammering and my daughter dying behind a closed door. I take Lily home because I don't know what else to do. The doctor's warning echoes in my mind as I help my 8-year-old daughter up the stairs to her bedroom, her small body so fragile now that I can feel every bone when I support her weight. 3 weeks ago, she was healthy and energetic, running track at school and begging for seconds at dinner. Then she started complaining about stomach pain. The pain progressed to nausea, then vomiting, then blood. I've taken her to 3 different doctors and 2 emergency rooms, and everyone tells me the same thing in different words. There's nothing wrong that they can identify. She should rest and stay hydrated, come back if symptoms worsen. But her symptoms are worsening constantly, and nobody will do anything. I tuck Lily into bed and she asks in a weak voice if she's going to die. I tell her no, absolutely not. That mommy is going to figure out what's wrong and fix it. I don't know if I'm lying or not. I just know I can't let my daughter see my terror. That night after Lily finally falls asleep, I sit at my laptop and start researching her symptoms systematically. Vomiting blood, severe abdominal pain, rapid weight loss, extreme fatigue, occasional seizures that the doctors dismissed as anxiety-related. I search medical databases, read case studies, scroll through forums where parents discuss mysterious childhood illnesses. Around 2 a.m., I find something that makes my blood run cold. A support group for parents whose children developed similar symptoms, all of them treated at Riverside Memorial Hospital within the past 6 months, all of them experiencing the same pattern of medical dismissal and refusal to investigate. I create an account and send messages to every parent in the group, explaining Lily's symptoms and asking if their situations match. By morning, I have 12 responses. Every single one describes the exact same experience, right down to doctors warning them to stop asking questions. One mother named Patricia Nguyen responds with a phone number and a message saying we need to talk immediately. I call her at 7 a.m. and she answers on the first ring, her voice tight with fear and desperation. She tells me her son Danny is 11 and has been sick for 4 months with symptoms identical to Lily's. She's taken him to every specialist she could find, spent thousands on private consultations, and nobody will help. But 2 weeks ago, she hired a medical records consultant to review Danny's file from Riverside Memorial, and the consultant found something alarming. There are gaps in the records, entire sections redacted or missing, and the medication list doesn't match what Patricia remembers Danny receiving during his treatments. The consultant said it looked like someone had deliberately altered the records to hide something. Patricia gives me the consultant's contact information and tells me to get Lily's records immediately, before the hospital has a chance to further sanitize them. I request Lily's complete medical records from Riverside Memorial that same morning, citing my right as her legal guardian to access all documentation. The hospital's records department says it will take 7 to 10 business days to process my request. I tell them my daughter is critically ill and I need the records immediately to share with specialists. The clerk puts me on hold for 15 minutes, then comes back saying a supervisor needs to approve expedited requests, and that supervisor is currently unavailable. I can hear the lie in her voice. Someone is stalling, buying time to do exactly what Patricia warned about. I call an attorney I find through an internet search who specializes in medical malpractice and patient rights. His name is Thomas Reeves, and when I explain the situation, he tells me he can file an emergency motion to compel the hospital to release the records within 24 hours. He also says that hospitals refusing to provide records is extremely unusual, and suggests there's something significant they're trying to hide. The next morning, Lily's condition deteriorates sharply. She can't stand without help. Her skin has taken on a grayish pallor, and she's vomiting every hour whether she's eaten anything or not. I call 911 and tell them my daughter needs an ambulance immediately. The paramedics arrive within minutes and assess Lily's vitals with growing concern visible on their faces. Her blood pressure is dangerously low. Her heart rate is erratic, and she's severely dehydrated despite my attempts to get fluids into her. They load her onto a stretcher, and I climb into the ambulance with her. One of the paramedics asks which hospital I prefer, and I'm about to say Riverside Memorial out of habit when I remember Dr. Marsh's warning. I tell them to take us to County General, the large teaching hospital 30 minutes away. The paramedic nods and radios the destination to the driver. During the drive, the paramedic starts an IV line and draws blood for labs. He tells me Lily's symptoms suggest acute organ stress, and asks if she's been exposed to any toxins or taken any medications recently. I say no to both, but even as I answer, doubt creeps in. How would I know what she's been exposed to if the doctors have been hiding information? County General's emergency department operates with completely different energy than Riverside Memorial. Within minutes of arrival, Lily is surrounded by doctors and nurses who take her symptoms seriously. They order comprehensive blood tests, imaging studies, toxicology screens, and a dozen other diagnostics I don't fully understand. A physician named Dr. Angela Freeman introduces herself as the attending and asks detailed questions about Lily's medical history, when symptoms started, what treatments she's received. I explain about the 3 weeks of progressive illness, the multiple visits to Riverside Memorial, the consistent refusal to investigate. Dr. Freeman's expression shifts from professional concern to something sharper, almost suspicious. She asks specifically which doctors I saw at Riverside and writes down every name I can remember. Then she tells me Lily needs to be admitted immediately for intensive monitoring and treatment, that her condition is critical and they're going to figure out what's causing it. While Lily is being settled into a pediatric intensive care unit room, Dr. Freeman pulls me aside into a small consultation room. She closes the door and asks if Lily has participated in any clinical trials or experimental treatments. I say no, absolutely not. I would never consent to something experimental without understanding all the risks. Dr. Freeman pulls out her phone and shows me a document that makes my stomach drop. It's a consent form with my signature, dated 4 months ago, authorizing Lily's participation in a Phase 2 clinical trial for a new pediatric medication called Naraxin 7. The form lists Riverside Memorial Hospital as the trial site and shows my signature at the bottom, clear and apparently legitimate. I've never seen this document before in my life. I tell Dr. Freeman that's not my signature, that I never consented to any trial, that I don't even know what Naraxin 7 is. She studies my face carefully, then nods and says she believes me. She explains that what I'm describing sounds like unauthorized enrollment in a drug trial, which is not only medical malpractice but criminal fraud. Dr. Freeman tells me that County General has treated 3 other children in the past 2 months with symptoms identical to Lily's, all of them previously treated at Riverside Memorial, all of them enrolled in the same Naraxin 7 trial without verified parental consent. The medication is supposed to treat childhood anxiety disorders, but it's causing severe gastrointestinal damage, organ stress, and neurological complications in a significant percentage of trial participants. The pharmaceutical company manufacturing Naraxin 7 is called Helix Therapeutics, a mid-sized firm that's been trying to break into the pediatric medication market for years. This drug represents their major investment and potential flagship product. If the trial fails or gets shut down due to safety issues, the company could face bankruptcy. Dr. Freeman says she's been documenting cases and reporting them to the state medical board, but so far nothing has happened because she lacks definitive proof of fraud. If I'm willing to pursue this, if I'm willing to fight, she'll help me gather evidence to expose what Riverside Memorial and Helix Therapeutics have been doing. The medical records from Riverside Memorial arrive that afternoon via my attorney's emergency motion. Thomas Reeves brings them to the hospital personally, and we spread them across a table in a family consultation room. Dr. Freeman joins us and starts going through the documents page by page. What we find is damning. Lily's records show she was prescribed Naraxin 7 4 months ago by a Dr. Philip Sutton, a psychiatrist at Riverside Memorial. The records indicate I brought Lily in for anxiety and behavioral issues and consented to experimental treatment after other medications failed. None of this is true. Lily has never had anxiety or behavioral problems. I've never taken her to see Dr. Sutton, and the dates listed for appointments are days when I have documented proof we were elsewhere. Dr. Freeman points out something else disturbing. The medication dosing schedule in Lily's records shows she received Naraxin 7 3 times per week for 16 weeks. But I never gave Lily any such medication at home, which means she was receiving it somewhere else without my knowledge. Thomas Reeves leans back in his chair and asks the question I've been afraid to voice. If Lily wasn't getting the medication at home, where was she getting it? We all sit in silence as the implications sink in. Dr. Freeman breaks the silence by asking if Lily has been participating in any after-school programs, sports teams, or activities at Riverside Memorial's Community Health Center. The hospital runs several youth programs, including an athletic club for elementary school students. I feel my hands start shaking as I remember Lily joined the hospital's junior track program 3 months ago, practicing twice a week at their facility. She loved it, came home excited and energetic, talking about her coach and the other kids. The program included a wellness component where the kids received vitamin supplements and health screenings. I thought it was wonderful that a hospital was investing in children's fitness and health. I signed permission forms for her participation without reading them carefully because I trusted the hospital completely. Thomas immediately says we need to contact other parents from that track program and find out if their children are experiencing similar symptoms. Dr. Freeman adds that we need to document everything before Riverside Memorial realizes we're investigating and destroys evidence. She suggests I not tell anyone at the hospital or Helix Therapeutics what we've discovered until we have enough proof to take to law enforcement. Thomas agrees and says he'll file a formal complaint with the district attorney's office first thing tomorrow morning, but we need testimonies from multiple families and documented medical evidence showing the unauthorized drugging. I think about Patricia Nguyen and her son Danny, about the 12 other parents who responded to my message in the support group. I pull out my phone and start making calls, explaining what we've found and asking if their children participated in the Riverside Memorial Junior Track program. 10 of the 12 families confirm their kids were in the program. The other 2 participated in different hospital youth activities, a science club and an art workshop, both of which included wellness components. That night, while Lily sleeps in her hospital bed with monitors tracking every heartbeat and breath, I sit in the uncomfortable chair beside her and think about how completely I failed to protect my daughter. I trusted doctors, trusted an institution, trusted a community program that presented itself as dedicated to children's health. And while I trusted, they were systematically poisoning my child as part of an illegal drug trial, forging my consent, and altering medical records to cover their crimes. Dr. Freeman told me earlier that Lily's prognosis depends on how much damage the Neuraxin 7 has done to her organs and whether we can reverse it with proper treatment. Some of the other children have recovered fully after months of intensive care. Others have permanent damage. One child died 3 weeks ago, and the death certificate lists the cause as acute liver failure with no mention of Neuraxin 7 or the trial. That child's parents don't know their daughter was experimented on. They think she died from a mysterious illness that doctors couldn't diagnose or treat. The district attorney's office assigns an investigator named Sarah Castellanos to the case. She's a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a reputation for taking on powerful institutions. Thomas arranged a meeting at County General where Sarah interviews me, Dr. Freeman, and Patricia Nguyen, whose son Danny is also now admitted here for treatment. Sarah records everything, takes copies of medical records, photographs the forged consent forms. She tells us she's going to need to move quickly because once Riverside Memorial and Helix Therapeutics realize they're under criminal investigation, they'll start destroying evidence and intimidating witnesses. She asks if we're prepared for what's coming, if we understand that powerful corporations with expensive lawyers will try to discredit us, threaten us, and make our lives difficult. Patricia and I look at each other, then at our children lying in hospital beds, damaged by people we trusted. We both say yes without hesitation. We'll do whatever it takes. Sarah's investigation moves with impressive speed. Within 3 days, she obtains warrants to seize records from Riverside Memorial, Helix Therapeutics, and Dr. Sutton's practice. She coordinates raids on all 3 locations simultaneously to prevent any warning or document destruction. The search teams find exactly what we suspected. Email communications between Helix executives and hospital administrators discussing enrollment quotas for the Neuraxin 7 trial. Financial records showing Riverside Memorial received substantial payments based on the number of children enrolled. Templates for forging parental consent forms. A private database tracking trial participants that doesn't match the official records submitted to regulatory agencies. And most damning, internal memos from Helix scientists warning about dangerous side effects months ago. Memos that were ignored because stopping the trial would mean losing hundreds of millions in potential revenue. The evidence shows that Helix Therapeutics' new Neuraxin 7 was causing serious adverse reactions within the first month of the trial, but chose to continue rather than report the problems to the FDA. They pressured Riverside Memorial to meet enrollment targets and discouraged doctors from documenting side effects. The hospital administration cooperated because they were receiving over $3 million in funding tied to the trial's success. Dr. Philip Sutton, the psychiatrist listed on the fraudulent consent forms, was receiving kickbacks of $500 per child enrolled. He never actually examined the children or provided any psychiatric care. His role was simply to generate paperwork that made the enrollment appear legitimate. The wellness programs at the hospital were specifically designed to provide access to children whose parents would never knowingly consent to experimental medication. The vitamins and supplements given to the kids were actually Neuraxin 7 tablets disguised in generic packaging. Sarah arrests Dr. Sutton first. The arrest happens at his home at 6 a.m., and she makes sure media cameras are present to record him being led away in handcuffs. The story breaks on local news that morning, a psychiatrist arrested for fraud and child endangerment in connection with an unauthorized drug trial. By afternoon, the story has gone national. Reporters descend on Riverside Memorial Hospital demanding statements. The hospital's board of directors releases a carefully worded response claiming they're cooperating fully with investigators and that any wrongdoing was the action of rogue individuals, not institutional policy. Sarah tells me that's exactly what she expected, that they'll try to sacrifice Dr. Sutton and a few administrators while protecting the leadership. But she's not stopping there. The evidence shows the hospital's CEO and chief medical officer were directly involved in authorizing the trial arrangement with Helix Therapeutics. Helix Therapeutics' stock price crashes by 60% when news of the investigation goes public. The company issues a statement denying any knowledge of consent fraud and claiming Riverside Memorial misrepresented their enrollment procedures. They announce they're suspending the Neuraxin 7 trial pending a complete review. Within 24 hours, 3 executives resign and the company's board appoints an interim CEO. But Sarah has already frozen corporate assets and obtained warrants for the executives' arrest. She's building cases for wire fraud, conspiracy, racketeering, and criminally negligent homicide related to the child who died. The investigation reveals that Helix executives knew children were being enrolled without proper consent, but looked the other way because they were desperate to prove the drug's viability before their funding ran out. Internal emails show the CEO writing that they needed to be aggressive about enrollment or risk losing everything they'd invested in Neuraxin 7's development. Meanwhile, at County General, Lily is slowly improving. Dr. Freeman's team has been treating her with medications to protect her liver and kidneys while her body processes the remaining Naraxin-7 in her system. The vomiting has stopped, her color is returning to normal, and she's able to eat small amounts without pain. Dr. Freeman tells me Lily was lucky, that we got her here before the organ damage became irreversible. Not all the children are as fortunate. Danny Nguyen remains critically ill, and 2 other kids have been transferred to specialized treatment centers for advanced care. The parents of the child who died learn the truth from news coverage and immediately hire attorneys to file wrongful death charges. Their grief transforms into rage when they discover their daughter's death was preventable, that she died because a corporation prioritized profit over safety. The legal consequences unfold rapidly. The district attorney charges 9 people with crimes ranging from fraud to manslaughter. Dr. Philip Sutton faces 73 criminal counts related to each child enrolled through his fraudulent consent forms. 4 Riverside Memorial administrators, including the CEO and chief medical officer, are charged with conspiracy and child endangerment. 4 Helix Therapeutics executives face federal charges for wire fraud and making false statements to regulatory agencies. The FDA launches its own investigation and places Helix Therapeutics under enhanced scrutiny, essentially killing any chance of the company surviving. Civil lawsuits follow immediately, with families filing cases seeking damages for medical expenses, pain and suffering, and punitive penalties. Thomas Reeves organizes the families into a class action lawsuit seeking $200 million in damages from both Riverside Memorial and Helix Therapeutics. Dr. Gregory Marsh, the emergency room physician who warned me to stop asking questions, contacts me through Dr. Freeman. He wants to meet privately to explain his actions. I agree to see him, more out of curiosity than forgiveness. We meet in a conference room at County General with Dr. Freeman present as witness. Dr. Marsh looks like he's aged years in the past 2 weeks, his face drawn and exhausted. He explains that he discovered the unauthorized trial 6 months ago when he noticed a pattern of children presenting with similar severe symptoms, all of them connected to Riverside Memorial's youth programs. He reviewed their medical records and found the inconsistencies and fraudulent consent forms. When he reported his concerns to hospital administration, they threatened him. They told him his contract would be terminated, his medical license would be attacked with false complaints, and his family would be targeted if he reported anything to authorities or continued investigating. They reminded him he had a wife and 2 young children to think about, so he kept quiet and watched children get sicker, hating himself but too afraid to act. Dr. Marsh says he started warning parents in the only way he could, telling them to stop asking questions in hopes they'd understand there was danger and seek help elsewhere. Some parents listened and took their children to other hospitals. Others, including me, were too focused on getting immediate treatment to understand the warning. He breaks down crying as he apologizes, saying he should have been braver, should have gone to the police regardless of the threats, that his cowardice contributed to children suffering and dying. I don't know how to respond to his confession. Part of me wants to forgive him because I understand the impossible position he was in. Part of me thinks he should have sacrificed his career and safety to protect children from ongoing harm. Dr. Freeman tells him that the district attorney wants his testimony and cooperation in exchange for immunity from prosecution. He agrees immediately, saying he'll tell them everything he knows and accept whatever consequences come from his failure to act sooner. The criminal trials begin 8 months after Sarah Castellanos started her investigation. By then, Lily has fully recovered physically, though she suffers from anxiety and trust issues that require therapy. She doesn't remember much about being sick, which Dr. Freeman says is a mercy given how traumatic the experience was. 23 children were enrolled in the unauthorized Naraxin-7 trial. 15 have recovered with varying degrees of lasting effects. 5 remain in treatment for severe organ damage. 2 died, the second child succumbing to complications 3 months after the investigation began. The parents of both deceased children attend every day of the trial, sitting in the front row where the defendants can see their grief-stricken faces. The prosecution presents overwhelming evidence of conspiracy, fraud, and deliberate endangerment. Expert witnesses testify about the severity of Naraxin-7's side effects and how any competent researcher would have halted the trial immediately after seeing the adverse reactions. Dr. Sutton's defense attorney tries to argue he was following orders from hospital administration and Helix executives, that he believed the trial was legitimate and approved. The prosecution destroys this defense by presenting emails showing Dr. Sutton explicitly discussing the fraudulent consent forms and expressing concern about getting caught. He wrote in one email that they needed to be more careful about forging signatures because some parents might notice discrepancies. In another email, he asked for higher kickback payments to compensate for the legal risk he was taking. The jury deliberates for 9 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. Dr. Sutton is sentenced to 35 years in federal prison. His medical license is permanently revoked. The hospital administrators receive sentences ranging from 15 to 25 years. Riverside Memorial's CEO gets the longest sentence, 25 years, with the judge stating he abused his position of trust and authority to enable systematic abuse of vulnerable children for financial gain. The Helix Therapeutics executives face federal court where the stakes are even higher. The prosecution presents evidence showing they knew about the consent fraud for months before authorities discovered it. They knew children were being harmed by Naraxin 7 but ordered the trial to continue. They falsified reports to the FDA claiming the drug was safe and effective when their own scientists were reporting dangerous complications. The CEO, a man named Lawrence Kessler, shows no remorse throughout the trial. His defense argues that pharmaceutical development requires difficult decisions and that adverse events are unfortunate but expected in medical research. The prosecution responds by showing that this wasn't legitimate research, but criminal experimentation on children without consent. The jury finds all 4 Helix executives guilty of multiple federal crimes. Lawrence Kessler receives 40 years in prison without possibility of parole. The other executives receive 20 to 30-year sentences. The civil lawsuit settles before trial. Riverside Memorial's insurance carrier agrees to pay $120 million to the affected families. Helix Therapeutics, facing bankruptcy, liquidates all assets and the proceeds of approximately $75 million are distributed among the victims. The families of the 2 children who died receive the largest settlements, though no amount of money compensates for losing a child to preventable corporate negligence. Patricia Nguyen's son Danny recovers enough to return home after 11 months of treatment, though he'll need ongoing medical monitoring for the rest of his life. The settlement money ensures he'll have access to whatever care he needs. Patricia uses her experience to become an advocate for stronger oversight of pharmaceutical trials and criminal penalties for consent fraud. She testifies before congressional committees about how easily her son was enrolled in an unauthorized experiment while she trusted the institution to protect him. The Riverside Memorial Hospital faces institutional consequences beyond the criminal convictions. The State Medical Board revokes the hospital's license to conduct clinical trials. Federal agencies investigate and find numerous regulatory violations unrelated to the Naraxin 7 trial. The hospital's bond rating is downgraded to junk status, making it financially unviable. 18 months after the scandal breaks, Riverside Memorial declares bankruptcy and closes permanently. The building is purchased by a different hospital system that completely replaces the administration and medical staff. A memorial is erected outside the facility commemorating the 2 children who died and recognizing the 23 victims of the unauthorized trial. The memorial includes their names and a plaque stating that they were failed by institutions that should have protected them, and that their suffering led to reforms preventing future abuses. Dr. Angela Freeman receives recognition from medical ethics organizations for her role in exposing the fraud and treating the victims. She's promoted to head of County General's Pediatrics Department and implements strict protocols for identifying potential research abuse. She establishes a patient advocacy program where families can report concerns about care or suspicions of unethical practices without fear of retaliation. She tells me during one of Lily's follow-up appointments that the Naraxin 7 case changed how she approaches medicine, that she'll never again assume institutions are trustworthy simply because they're established and respected. She says the case proved that corruption can exist anywhere, even in facilities dedicated to healing, and that doctors have an obligation to remain vigilant and question anything that seems wrong. Sarah Castellanos, the investigator who built the criminal cases, is promoted to director of the district attorney's white-collar crime unit. She uses the Naraxin 7 case as a template for investigating other potential pharmaceutical fraud. Her office establishes a task force dedicated to monitoring clinical trials and protecting vulnerable research subjects. She implements a hotline where medical professionals can anonymously report suspicions of research abuse. The hotline receives dozens of calls in its first year, leading to several investigations and 2 additional criminal prosecutions of researchers conducting unethical studies. Sarah tells a reporter covering the anniversary of the arrests that the Naraxin 7 case was a wake-up call about how easily profit motives can corrupt medical research and how essential aggressive prosecution is for deterring future abuses. Thomas Reeves, my attorney, uses the publicity from the case to establish a practice specializing in medical malpractice and research abuse. He represents victims in 3 similar cases over the following 2 years, winning substantial settlements and helping secure criminal convictions. He tells me the Naraxin 7 case taught him that the legal system can work when advocates refuse to back down and when prosecutors take corporate crime seriously. He establishes a foundation that provides free legal services to families who suspect their children have been subjects of unethical medical research but can't afford attorney fees. The foundation is funded by a portion of his settlement earnings and donations from families like mine who want to ensure other victims have access to justice. 3 years after I first took Lily to Riverside Memorial's emergency room with vomiting and pain, we attend a remembrance ceremony for the victims of the unauthorized Naraxin 7 trial. All 23 children who were enrolled are present except for the 2 who died, represented instead by their grieving parents. We gather at the memorial outside what used to be Riverside Memorial Hospital, now renamed County Medical Center East under new management. Patricia Nguyen speaks about her son Danny's recovery and the ongoing challenges he faces. The parents of the deceased children speak about their losses and their determination that their children's deaths not be in vain. I speak about Lily's recovery and the importance of questioning authority when something feels wrong. I tell the assembled families and media representatives that I almost accepted Dr. Marsh's warning to stop asking questions, that I almost took my dying daughter home and let the conspiracy continue because I was afraid. I'm grateful I found the courage to keep pushing, to demand answers, to refuse to accept that some questions are too dangerous to ask. Lily stands beside me during the ceremony, now 11 years old and healthy. She doesn't remember much about being sick, but she understands that something bad happened to her, and that many people fought to make sure it wouldn't happen to other children. She's still in therapy processing the trust issues and anxiety that stem from being violated by people and institutions she should have been able to trust completely. Her therapist says she's making good progress and that children are remarkably resilient when given proper support. Lily tells me sometimes she has nightmares about being sick and feeling helpless, but mostly she feels lucky to have survived when others didn't. She asks if the bad people who hurt her are in prison, and I tell her yes, they're all in prison for a very long time. She seems satisfied with that answer. The reforms that emerged from the Naraxin 7 case are substantial and permanent. Federal law now requires enhanced oversight of pediatric clinical trials, including mandatory independent verification of parental consent and surprise audits of trial sites. Pharmaceutical companies face criminal liability for executives who knowingly allow unethical trials to proceed. Hospitals lose federal funding if they're found to have participated in unauthorized research. Medical professionals have enhanced whistleblower protections when reporting suspected research abuse. The reforms aren't perfect, and there are still ways for unscrupulous researchers to exploit vulnerable populations, but the barriers are higher and the consequences are more severe. Every person involved in pharmaceutical research knows about the Naraxin 7 case and the lengthy prison sentences that resulted from that conspiracy. The case serves as a warning that profit-driven medical research conducted without ethical constraints will ultimately face accountability. I think about Dr. Marsh's warning often. Some answers are more dangerous than the illness. He meant that knowing the truth about the unauthorized trial would put us at risk from powerful people trying to protect their conspiracy. He was trying to warn me while staying within the constraints of his threatened position. But what he didn't understand, what the conspirators didn't understand, is that not knowing the truth was more dangerous than any threat they could make. Staying silent while my daughter died from preventable poisoning was not an option. Accepting their warnings and walking away would have meant letting them continue experimenting on children. The only way forward was through the danger, through the investigation, through the confrontation with powerful institutions that assumed they were untouchable. The answer was dangerous, but it was necessary, and it led to justice that protected countless other children from suffering the same fate as my daughter and the 22 others who were victims of corporate greed disguised as medical research. 4 years after that terrifying morning when Dr. Marsh warned me to stop asking questions, Lily graduates from elementary school with honors and plans to attend middle school in the fall. She's healthy, active, and thriving despite everything she endured. Lawrence Kessler, the Helix Therapeutics CEO, sits in federal prison where he'll remain for decades. Dr. Sutton is in a different facility serving his 35-year sentence. The Riverside Memorial administrators who enabled the conspiracy are imprisoned. The hospital that facilitated their crimes no longer exists. The families who lost children have found some measure of peace through justice and advocacy. And I sleep at night knowing I didn't accept the warning to stop asking questions, that I found the courage to seek dangerous answers, and that my daughter survived because I refused to let powerful people convince me that ignorance was safer than truth. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.